Nostalgia, a single word that carries with it entire worlds of memories and emotions.
Oh shit, here we go again.
So, what is nostalgia? Definition is a sentimental longing or affection for a period in the past. Now, how does that relate to the video games industry? Well, let me tell you. Is nostalgia a drug in the video games industry? This sentence I have wondered for a long time, and what does it mean exactly? I'm not talking a literal drug, of course, but how it operates in much the same way, addictive, irresistible, and capable of altering how we think, feel, and even spend our hard-earned money. This video will explore nostalgia, how video game companies weaponize it for profit, the psychological aspects, its benefits and its drawbacks. Game companies know that players form deep emotional attachments to games from their childhood and past. Revisiting these games, hearing the soundtracks, hearing voice lines,
Listen!
and even recognizing a smell, for example. Something as simple as a home-cooked meal which you had while enjoying these video games in the past will bring up memories of nostalgia. Nostalgia isn't just a random feeling, it's deeply tied to human psychology. Studies show that when we experience nostalgia, our brains release dopamine, that feel-good chemical. It gives us comfort, warmth, and a sense of belonging. Sound familiar? This is why just hearing the PlayStation 2 boot up sound, or Pokemon Red/Blue startup jingle, can trigger a rush of emotions. It's not just about the sound, it's about what that sound represented in your life. Typically relating to your childhood, free time, friendships, or just simpler days when responsibilities weren't ravaging your life. Nostalgia happens in every industry and life in general, but the effect of nostalgia is amplified in the video games industry due to games being immersive and possibly even an escape for some. For example, we don't watch Link in the Legend of Zelda series solve the puzzles, fight the bosses and discover the secrets. We are Link. These active memories become tightly bound to who we were at the time, which makes the emotional pull even stronger years later. In fact, this emotional pull allows nostalgia to become one of the biggest marketing tools in gaming. From remakes like Resident Evil 2 to long-awaited PC ports like Red Dead Redemption 1, companies know players will pay to relive these feelings. Now, I'm not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with this. In fact, I bought Red Dead Redemption 1 on PC on release day to relive my memories of the game when I last played it on Xbox 360. How about you? Have you ever replayed a game purely for nostalgia? However, doing this raises a difficult question. Am I truly replaying the game for the gameplay? Or am I chasing the feelings I had when I first played it? That question sits at the heart of nostalgia-driven gaming. For many players, the excitement of a remake or re-release isn't about discovering something new, but about recapturing the sense of wonder they felt years ago. When Capcom released Resident Evil 2 Remake, fans weren't just thrilled about updated visuals, they were reliving the suspense, fear, and memories from the 1990s. Similarly, Nintendo's frequent re-releases of classic Mario or Zelda titles thrive on the promise of transporting players back to the living rooms of their childhood. Also, some companies re-release the same game over and over again. You know exactly who I'm talking about. And while fans still buy them, it makes you wonder, is this really about preserving great games, or is it just an easy cash grab? Sometimes it feels less about passion and more about exploiting players' nostalgia for profit. I think a big part of it is that players know what they're getting and know that they've enjoyed these titles before, so why would this time be any different, right? Personally, I catch myself replaying a lot of games, for example The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, because I want to feel the same excitement I did the first time around. That's when nostalgia starts to feel a bit like a drug. It hooks us with a promise of reliving something, but in truth, it will never be exactly the same again. And I find that when I do replay any of these franchises or video games, it almost feels like I'm looking at it through a different lens than I did when I was a teenager or child. Nostalgia is not inherently negative. It actually offers the chance to enrich your gaming experience. In stressful times, I like to watch TV shows, YouTube videos, or even movies which I have already seen, and this is the same with games. The reason behind this is the emotional comfort that returning to games you know the story of gives you. Remakes and remasters of games allows for easier avenues to preserve these games too. and can even allow some people to reconnect with their family through generations, as parents who grew up with Pokemon, Mario or Zelda can now introduce those games to their children, creating shared experiences. There's a large community of gamers where people bond over nostalgia factors of their favourite games through shared memories and or traditions. In this sense, nostalgia isn't just a marketing trick, it's a way of keeping gaming history alive and meaningful. But when there's positives, there's always negatives, and when nostalgia is overused, it can actually ruin your perception of those great gaming moments of the past. For example, chasing the past can lead to disillusionment when the new version doesn't live up to its memory. The high is never quite the same after all. And don't forget that companies typically release overpriced remasters and remakes that add little to no new content but rely solely on the nostalgia factor. This is where nostalgia becomes dangerous, when players stop seeking new experiences and only return to the past. When I was younger, I loved diving into new worlds, stories, gameplay and characters. That sense of discovery is, to me, the true beauty of gaming. But with newer titles and the overabundance of wikis and guides, have I lost that sense of exploration? And is it just me that feels this way? Now, don't get me wrong, returning to your favourite childhood game isn't always a bad thing. It can remind you of why you fell in love with gaming in the first place, or let you share those experiences with friends and younger players. But the key is balance. If nostalgia becomes the only reason we play games, it risks turning something once vibrant and adventurous into a repetitive cycle of reliving the past. It can be exciting, sure, but it can also blind us to the amazing new experiences waiting just around the corner. Now, all this talk about nostalgia raises another big question that I know a lot of gamers have asked at one point or another. Are older games just better? It's easy to think so because back then, games felt simpler, more focused with no battle passes and endless DLCs. But here's a key thing you need to realise. Sometimes it's not that the older games were better, it's that they were newer to us as the consumers. They gave us experiences that we'd never had before. The first time you explored Hyrule in Ocarina of Time or played against other real players in Halo, you were feeling and seeing something groundbreaking, and unfortunately, that sense of discovery can never be repeated in the same way, no matter how many remakes or remasters release. This is because you've already experienced, if you're like me and game a lot, hundreds if not thousands of different worlds with different experiences. However, due to hardware limitations back then, developers were often forced to be incredibly creative, with mechanics, progression, and only having local couch co-op at times, which actually brought people together in ways that online lobbies cannot replicate. But let's not forget, nostalgia somehow manages to polish away the rough edges, and that is why when re-experiencing these games you notice every flaw and issue, but choose to ignore it to try and enjoy it as much as you did the first time around. So are older games better? Honestly, not really. Look at Red Dead Redemption 2.
My name is John Mustard!
When playing, it's basically a movie with barely no limitations on what you can and cannot do. In the end, maybe it's less about old versus new and more about which games have given us those unforgettable feelings and which ones still can today, because I know I love some newer games just as much as I loved Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker and Halo back in the early 2000s. The biggest example of nostalgia for me is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. The sound effects, the soundtrack, even just the gameplay brings me back to that feeling of how much I loved this game when I was younger. Now don't get me wrong, I replay this game every couple of years, mainly because I genuinely love it, but is it also me chasing the feelings I had back then? Is it me subconsciously wishing I could feel as carefree as I did all those years ago? No bills to pay, nothing to worry about except school and coming home to play my favourite video games, whether with friends, family or even just alone? To get a better understanding, I asked some friends what nostalgia means to them, and their answers might surprise you. Now, it's your turn. Please tell me in the comments below what nostalgia means to you. But, before that, let's conclude the video. So, is nostalgia a drug in the video games industry? In many ways, yes. It may not come in a syringe or a bottle, but it operates in ways which are addictive, comforting, and at times exploitive. It keeps players hooked, including myself, encourages spending, and shapes the strategies of some of the biggest companies in gaming. But unlike most drugs, nostalgia is not purely destructive. It can also heal, connect, and preserve. It gives us joy in hard times and lets us revisit parts of ourselves we thought were gone. The danger lies not in nostalgia itself, but in how it's used, and how much power we allow it to have over our choices. So go ahead, play your favourite childhood game again. Buy that £50 remake or remaster if it feels worth it to you, because at the end of the day, that joy is yours, and not even nostalgia can take that away. Thanks so much for watching. This is a very different video to what I normally make, and I'd love to hear from you. What's your favourite game from your childhood? Drop it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and keep gaming. Peace.